This is a note. This is harmony. And this is a chord. This is a major chord. It has the root, the major third, and the fifth. Almost all chords are built on the interval of a third. C to E is a third, and so is E to G. Any major chord's chord symbol is just the note it is based on. It is implied from this that it is major. When you lower the third by a half step, you get a minor triad, shown by the root note and either a minus sign or a lowercase m for minor. From there, you can lower the fifth of the chord to get a diminished triad, signified by a little circle or dim after the note name. Now if you take a major chord and raise the fifth, you get an augmented triad, shown by the letter followed by a plus sign or AUG. Now we can start adding more notes. Since chords are built up by thirds, our next chord extension is the seventh. There are 6 basic types of seventh chords. First is the major seventh chord, displayed usually by MAJ, though sometimes by a triangle or by a capital M, each of these followed by the number 7. In this chord, the seventh is a major seventh above the root note. The dominant seventh chord is written as the note name followed by a 7, in this example read simply as C7. This chord is made by lowering the seventh to be a minor seventh above the root. Note that the basic triad of C, E, and G is still major. Next is the minor seventh chord. This chord has a minor triad with a minor seventh, and it is written with a lowercase m or a minus sign, both followed by a 7. The next chord is used much less frequently, but is still helpful to know about. The minor major seventh chord has a minor triad with a major seventh. It is written like a minor chord with MAJ 7 in parentheses. Next is the diminished seventh chord. This chord has a diminished triad with a seventh that is lowered twice, so in this case, B double flat. The chord symbol is written like a diminished triad with a 7 to follow it. The last seventh chord is the half diminished 7. This is just like the diminished seventh chord, but the seventh is only lowered once. This is shown with the root note, a small circle with a slash through it, and a 7. Notes added above the seventh are called upper extensions, and are used to add more tension and color to the chords. They go up in thirds, from the 9th to the 11th to the 13th. There are too many possible combinations of chord qualities for me to go through all of them, so I will explain how to figure them out for yourself. Chords with upper extensions are written just like seventh chords, but with the 7 replaced with the number of the highest unaltered upper extension. Every extension under the written number is an implied part of the chord. For example, a C minor 11 chord would have the root, the minor third, the fifth, the minor seventh, the 9th, and the 11th. There is an exception to this though. In dominant 13 chords and in major 13 chords, the 11th is almost always left out. The 11th is the same as the 4th scale degree of a key, so it would clash with the major third of the chord. The 11th can be included in special cases if it is specified, but if it isn't, you should not include it in the chord. Keep in mind that if these chords with upper extensions do not state major or minor, it is implied that they are dominant chords. Diminished 7 chords and half diminished 7 chords do not often get upper extensions in common practice. However, the minor major 7 chord can have a 9th. This would be read as C minor major 9. To add some color to these upper extension chords, some of these notes can be moved around. Notes in chords that are made sharp or flat are called alterations. Alterations are written in the chord symbol in parentheses after the highest unchanged extension. The options are flat 5, sharp 5, flat 9, sharp 9, sharp 11, and flat 13. These alterations do exactly what they sound like. They raise or lower the given scale degree by a half step. You should not also include the natural version of a note that has been altered. In simple triads and seventh chords, alterations can also be used, as long as the scale degree being altered is part of the chord. For example, the chord C flat 5 would have C, E, and G flat. A major triad with a sharp 5 is the same as an augmented triad, so it is not normally written as an alteration. A minor seventh chord with a flat 5 is the same as a half diminished seventh chord. In this case, either notation can be used. In major chords with upper extensions, the only alteration used is sharp 11, but remember that if the 11th is not sharp, it is left out. In dominant chords, you can use any combination of all the available alterations. You might notice that sharp 5 and flat 13 would be the same note. Flat 13 is used when you specifically want the sound of the natural fifth in the chord as well as the raised fifth. Remember that the first number in a chord symbol is the highest extension that is not altered, so you can have chords where an alteration has a higher scale degree than the first written number in the chord symbol. For example, C9 sharp 11. In sheet music, the sharp ninth is often written as its enharmonic equivalent, the flat third, for easier reading. Multiple alterations can be used on the same scale degree, such as in a C7 flat 9 sharp 9 chord. In jazz, you may see a chord symbol that has the root note followed by a 7 and the letters ALT. This is called an altered chord, or an alt chord for short. This chord symbol doesn't refer to a specific set of pitches for the musician to play, but a whole scale for them to choose notes from. This scale is essentially the ascending form of a melodic minor scale, but starting on the 7th scale degree. So, if faced with a C7 alt chord, you choose from the notes C, D flat, E flat, E natural, G flat, A flat, and B flat. Yet it is possible to separate the scale out into a chord. This would be C7, sharp 5, flat 9, sharp 11. With that many extensions, it's easier to read and write as just ALT. At the beginning of this video, I said that almost all chords are built by the interval of a third, so now we'll talk about the ones that aren't. First, I'll explain suspensions. If you know classical theory, you know that a suspended note is a note that is not part of a chord that is held over from the previous chord and resolves down. For example, if you have an F major chord going to a C major chord, you could hold the note F into the C chord, replacing the E, then resolve it down to E, and that would make a 4-3 suspension. In jazz theory, suspended chords are related to that, but still different. Although it's counterintuitive, the suspended note does not have to be part of the previous chord, and it does not have to be resolved. There are two kinds of suspensions, a sus4 and a sus2. Any dominant chord with any amount of extensions can have them. In sus4 chords, the third of the chord is replaced by the fourth a half step above. In sus2 chords, the third is replaced by the major second of the chord a whole step below where the third would have been. Suspensions can also be used in simple triads with no extensions, but only those with a natural fifth. Triads with suspensions are not considered major or minor, since there is no third in such chords. If you see a chord that just says sus without specifying 4 or 2, it is implied that it is a sus4 chord. The suspension is always written at the end of the chord symbol. One example would be a C13 sus chord. This would have the notes C, F, G, B flat, D, and A. The next kind of chord not based on thirds is the sixth chord. This chord is a major triad with the sixth added on top, and is written as the root note name followed by a 6. Minor sixth chords are a minor triad, still with the major 6 on top. The chord symbol for these chords is just like that of a minor triad, but with a 6. 6-9 chords and minor 6-9 chords are very similar. These are triads with the major 6th and the 9th of the chord added. The chord symbols are written the same way as sixth chords, but with 6/9 instead of just a 6. Some chords might have notes added to them. Remember that a 9th chord would also have the 7th. So what if you want a chord with the 9th but no 7th? This would be written as add 9 in parentheses at the end of the chord symbol. It is also sometimes written as add 2, but it means the same thing since the 2nd and 9th scale degrees are the same note. These are the most common notes to be added to a chord, but just about any note can be added. You might sometimes see an added 11th, sharp 11th, or even a flat 6th. In contrast, notes can also be taken out of chords. This is relatively rare, and is almost exclusively used to remove the third of a chord, making it neither major nor minor. This is written as omit 3 or no 3 in parentheses. Note that these chords can still be written as major if they have a major 7th. Omit 3 is only used for chords with extensions, because if a triad has no third, that makes it a power chord. Power chords are chords with only the root and the fifth, and are the only chords with just 2 notes. They are written as the root note, followed by a 5. Power chords cannot have any extensions or alterations, they are always just the root and the natural fifth of the chord. Slash chords are chords that change the lowest sounding note, or the bass note, to a note that is not the root of the chord. the bass note can be changed to any note that is or is not part of the chord. Slashes can be used on any chord of any quality with any amount of extensions or alterations. These chords are written as the chord's whole symbol followed by a slash and the note that is being put in the bass. When reading these chords out loud, the slash is read as over, for example, C over E flat. These are not to be confused with polychords, which are written similar to fractions. Polychords are chords that are really two separate chords with one put on top of the other. These are not super commonly used and usually only have chords with extensions up to a seventh. They are written with one chord on the top of a horizontal line with the other on the bottom. In general, it is important to keep in mind that the notes of any chord can be put into any order, using voicings that may sound better than playing block chords, such as this voicing of a C13 chord. Some chords might have the same notes as others, like D over C7 and C13 sharp 11, or C6 and A minor 7 over C. Either way of notation can be correct. The choice of which to use is purely contextual and up to the composer. I hope you enjoyed the video and can leave with some new knowledge. If you think I missed something or made a mistake, let me know in the comments. Thanks for watching.